The venture capital game is often portrayed as a glamorous engine of innovation, a financial force that propels brilliant founders into the stratosphere of global impact. But behind that image lies a complex, high-pressure, deeply psychological system in which capital, belief, risk, and vision collide to shape the next generation of transformative companies. Venture capital does not simply fund ideas. It accelerates them, amplifies them, pressures them, and tests them in ways that few other financial mechanisms can. The story of how funding fuels innovation is, at its core, a story about how ambitious individuals with bold ideas intersect with investors capable of recognizing potential long before it becomes visible to the broader world. In this sense, the game begins not with money, but with imagination. The founder's imagination of what could be, and the investor's imagination of what the founder might become. This shared vision forms the foundation of venture-backed innovation, turning abstract possibility into structured opportunity. The earliest stage of this dynamic, often referred to as pre-seed or seed funding, is the most fragile. Here, investors are not evaluating numbers or traction. They are evaluating people, their psychology, their clarity of thought, their intensity, and their capacity to endure the grueling path ahead. Many of the world's most iconic companies began with little more than a raw idea and a founder who could articulate a future that didn't yet exist. Venture capital, at this stage, functions like rocket fuel poured onto a spark. It allows founders to quit their jobs, build prototypes, run experiments, and turn late-night theories into early product iterations. But it also creates a subtle shift. The moment money enters the picture, accountability begins. Founders now carry not only the weight of their dreams, but the expectations of those who bet on them. As a startup progresses into later rounds, Series A, B, C, and beyond, the venture capital game becomes increasingly strategic. Investors are no longer betting on possibility. They are betting on execution, speed, scalability, and market fit. At this stage, capital is not just fuel, it is leverage. It accelerates hiring, expands distribution, funds marketing, improves technology, and fortifies the company against competitors. For high-growth sectors like fintech, biotech, AI, climate tech, and enterprise software, venture funding becomes the scaffolding on which innovation is built. Without it, many breakthroughs would remain theoretical due to their cost, complexity, and time horizon. Venture capital shortens the distance between idea and impact, enabling founders to operate with momentum that traditional business models rarely allow. Yet what makes the venture capital game so fascinating is the psychological dance between founders and investors. Founders seek capital to build their vision, while investors seek founders who can turn capital into exponential value. Both sides need each other, yet both sides carry their own fears. Founders fear losing control, disappointing investors, or scaling too slowly. Investors fear betting on the wrong team, missing the next big wave, or misreading signals that determine the fate of billion-dollar outcomes. This tension creates a unique environment where honesty, storytelling, and strategic thinking blend together. Fundraising is not merely a transaction, it is a narrative exercise, a test of clarity, conviction, and differentiation. Great founders learn to translate their insights into compelling stories, garnering belief from investors who, in turn, become amplifiers of the company's mission. Another critical dimension of venture capital is the portfolio model. Investors know that most startups fail, sometimes quietly, sometimes catastrophically. But in the venture model, a handful of massive successes pay for dozens of failures. This shapes investor behavior. They are not looking for safe bets. They are searching for outliers. Companies that grow 10x, 100x, even 1000x. This search for extreme outcomes pushes founders to pursue bold, high-risk opportunities that might not be viable under traditional funding structures. The portfolio model is one of the primary engines behind modern innovation, encouraging founders to think bigger, move faster, and tackle problems previously considered impossible. The result is a world where venture-backed companies build rockets, rewrite genetic code, reinvent transportation, digitize finance, reshape education, and reimagine the ways humans connect and create. But venture capital is not without its controversies. With great funding comes great pressure. The speed that venture capital demands can be both a blessing and a curse. Startups may scale prematurely, pursue artificial growth, or stretch their teams thin. Founders risk burnout, operational chaos, or loss of strategic clarity. Some companies collapse under the weight of expectations. The venture capital game rewards speed, but speed can amplify fragility. This is why seasoned founders treat capital not as a solution, but as a tool, a multiplier of good decisions and a magnifier of bad ones. They understand that funding alone does not guarantee innovation. Execution does. And execution depends on talent, culture, discipline, and adaptability. Another underappreciated aspect of venture capital is the role investors play beyond money. The best investors are thought partners, connectors, mentors, and crisis navigators. They introduce key hires, open customer relationships, provide strategic feedback, and in difficult moments, help founders avoid catastrophic mistakes. In many legendary companies, the investor-founder relationship became one of the decisive factors for success. Yet not all investors are created equal. Some bring wisdom, others bring interference. Some amplify the founder's vision, others distort it. And so choosing investors becomes one of the most important recruitment decisions a founder will ever make. They are selecting not just capital but long-term collaborators who will influence the direction, pace, and philosophy of the company. As companies enter late-stage funding rounds, the venture capital game evolves again. At this stage, investors look for structural dominance, network effects, defensible moats, pricing power, global scalability, and the ability to outcompete or acquire rivals. Innovation becomes institutionalized. The company transitions from a fragile experiment to a force shaping global markets. Funding supports expansion into new geographies, acquisitions, advanced R&D, and operational systems that prepare the company for IPO or large-scale private valuation. The narrative shifts from possibility to inevitability, not because success is guaranteed, but because the company's momentum has become self-sustaining. Ultimately, the venture capital game reveals a profound truth about innovation. It thrives not in isolation, but in ecosystems. Founders, investors, early employees, advisors, customers, and markets all interact in a complex dance that transforms small ideas into world-changing companies. Venture capital accelerates this dance by injecting belief and resources into the system at precisely the moments when innovation is most fragile. It allows society to explore the edges of what is possible more quickly and more boldly than ever before. And as we pull back the curtain on how funding fuels innovation, we see not just a financial mechanism, but a cultural engine, one that rewards courage, imagination, and endurance, driving forward the relentless pursuit of progress that defines the modern technological era, reminding us that behind every breakthrough stands someone who believed early, someone who invested deeply, and someone who dared to push the boundaries of what is possible, ultimately shaping not just industries, but the very rhythm of innovation itself. In the second phase of the venture capital narrative, the spotlight shifts from the mechanics of funding to the deeper, more subtle ways capital reshapes human behavior, competition, and the evolutionary logic of startups as they grow. Venture capital, once merely the fuel for early experimentation, becomes the accelerant that forces founders to build not only faster but smarter refining strategy, deepening product insight, and cultivating operational discipline under rising expectations. As a startup matures, the dynamic between investor and founder evolves into something far more intricate than a financial partnership. It becomes a strategic choreography where alignment, transparency, and trust determine whether the company ascends toward dominance or fractures under pressure. Investors begin serving as sounding boards during crises, reality checks during hype, and strategic partners during inflection points. This is where experienced VCs prove their worth, by offering frameworks that help founders navigate uncertainty, by introducing relationships that unlock new levels of scale, and by providing the steady perspective needed when markets fluctuate or competitors emerge more aggressively than expected. Meanwhile, Capital transforms the internal physics of a startup. With each funding round, the company enters a new gravitational field. Teams expand, decisions multiply, and the cultural simplicity of the early days becomes harder to preserve. Venture funding forces founders to evolve as leaders, to communicate more clearly, to delegate more effectively, and to make choices not just for survival, but for long-term advantage. Innovation becomes more deliberate, more structured. Every dollar raised becomes a declaration that the company must now justify its ambition with results. This pressure does not diminish creativity, it refines it. Founders learn to balance vision with discipline, experimentation with focus, and risk with responsibility. They discover that innovation is no longer about proving that something can be built. It is about proving that it can scale sustainably, profitably, and defensibly. At the same time, the influx of capital reshapes competitive landscapes. When one startup raises a major round, rivals respond with speed, aggression, or reinvention. Markets heat up, talent wars intensify, and strategic alliances shift rapidly. Venture-backed competition forces entire industries to evolve faster than they otherwise would. Traditional companies, once protected by size and stability, find themselves pressured by agile newcomers armed with resources and ambition. This competitive turbulence may seem chaotic, but it is precisely what accelerates innovation across society. New business models emerge, user expectations rise, and technological progress becomes a necessity rather than an option. As companies approach late-stage funding, venture capital becomes less about survival and more about dominance. Investors look for evidence that the startup can build moats, network effects, brand gravity, proprietary data, technological barriers, or platform ecosystems. The startup shifts from scrappy outsider to category leader, and with that shift comes responsibility. Governance, compliance, global expansion, risk management, and long-term sustainability. Venture investors now evaluate not just growth curves, but the character and judgment of the leadership team. A CEO capable of thriving at 10 employees may struggle at 1,000. Venture capital magnifies these transitions, forcing founders to grow into the roles their companies require. The most extraordinary founders rise to this challenge, evolving faster than the market, mastering complexity with the same intensity they once applied to prototype building. Yet funding alone cannot guarantee lasting innovation. The true magic occurs when capital merges with culture, when a company uses resources not to inflate vanity metrics, but to nurture its talent, invest in deep technology, refine its product, and continuously question its assumptions. Venture capital accelerates whatever already exists within a startup. In strong cultures, it amplifies excellence. In weak cultures, it accelerates collapse. This is why the greatest founders treat capital with reverence. They understand it as a lever that magnifies character, strategy, and discipline. Beyond the financial mechanics and psychological dynamics lies a larger truth. Venture capital is, at its core, a bet on human potential. It is a system created to reward audacity, curiosity, and persistence. It exists because society recognizes that some ideas require bold risk-taking and long time horizons. It thrives because every new wave of founders dares to imagine a world that does not yet exist. And it endures because the cycle of innovation never truly ends. Old problems evolve into new ones. New technologies unlock new frontiers, and new generations of entrepreneurs step forward to challenge the impossible. In the end, the venture capital game is not about money at all. It is about belief. Belief that progress is worth funding, that risk is worth taking, and that the future can be shaped by those willing to pursue it with relentless conviction. Innovation flourishes when capital meets courage, when vision meets execution, and when the right people align around the right problem at the right moment in history. This is how funding fuels innovation. By turning aspiration into action, potential into momentum, and ideas into world-changing realities. Completed